This is a famous author for Batman, Punisher, Robin, and more. And today, I'm gonna show him my comic book, inspired by the fighting games we all love so much. If you wanna order your copy, then check out my link below. And join me as we chat with Chuck Dixon about comics, the movie industry, and a lot more. I reached out to a bunch of comic people, and you were like the first to respond, which really caught me off guard. I was like, whoa!
They're just cool looking characters.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it looked good.
Robin Hood in future Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So how did you want to go about the video course today? What'd you want to do?
It's your show, whatever you want to do, whatever you usually do. But you got more eyeballs than I've got, so.
I do, but you have comic eyeballs. People who watch your stuff are all comic buyers.
We're each trying to get out of our own ghetto.
Yeah. Feels almost like starting over, like when my channel was first small and I was just trying to get people to watch.
Yeah.
Now people watch, but now I'm just trying to get people to buy. Like people who want to buy a comic.
The guy that impresses me most is my buddy Graham, because he didn't have a big video following or anything else. He just did comics, and he built it and built it and built it. So,
that's awesome.
He's got a really respectable audience just based on comics alone.
Gotcha. And he has no channel, or does he post on his channel too?
He has channel and all that stuff, but he didn't have what Eric July and your boy Zach had. They had this huge following and then went into comics. Graham started the opposite direction, which is a tough slog, because comics are, they're not that big a niche.
Which is odd, because they were like in the 90s and early 2000s, right? Like comics were everywhere. Like they were so popular that even if someone did a spin-off series, like when Image first came out, like you couldn't keep people out of the stores when Image started making comics. Like celebrities were going in and everything. Like there were hip-hop artists in there buying comics, getting it signed and stuff. So like we went from that to where I was watching one of your recent videos, and it's true, you go to like a Barnes and Noble or a bookstore and it's like this tiny section of comics and then manga, just walls of manga.
Yes.
The sad thing is, I guess I'm part of the problem, because I do keep up with some comics, but I'm reading way more manga lately, so I guess I'm part of the problem.
We all are. I read manga too, so.
They're pretty good. Like, they're pretty gripping stories a lot of the time. I think it helps having either the one writer or just the same consistent set of writers. That way they don't run off and change the character too much. That might be Marvel and DC's issue, is they hire people that are like, what if this character, who's been around for decades, just did this now? And it's like, wait, you can't do that though. You can't just change them to being something else. Like just make a new character.
What if they were more like me?
Yeah. Is that what you think too? Is that your experience, you think? Is that it's better to have the same consistent people?
Yeah, absolutely. They don't want to work within the framework.
But yeah, I guess I'll just tell you a bit about my comic that I'm working on right now. I've actually already made 3, but this is the first one I've gone public with. And it's because it's a niche that fits within the genre of my YouTube channel. I mostly cover video games, and specifically fighting games. So like your Street Fighters and your Tekkens and Mortal Kombats. Do you know any of those?
Oh, yeah. I'm familiar with them. I mostly remember them from the arcade days. So.
Oh, yeah. But basically it's a comic book inspired by fighting games. So every character is a parody of existing famous characters. So you have like your Ryus, you have your Ninja Girl, you have your Capoeira fighter, like the dance fighter, and all that cool stuff. But also I thought it'd be funny, like what if these video game characters were real? How would I sell these mechanics that happen in fighting games, but it's believable in a real setting? So one example is, how could someone fight every day? Like no one could keep that up, right? Even professional fighters, they have like maybe 2 or 3 fights a year, and they're pretty messed up because they're fighting really strong people who are trying to kill them. So I was like, okay, well, what if the arena they fight in is enchanted? So whenever they leave, like they're healed. It's magic. That way they can fight every single day. And not only can they keep that up, but they also don't hate everyone, because you would hate your neighbors if they beat you up every day, but you're healed, so it's no big deal.
Cool.
Another fun example is video games have what's called a balance patch, especially in fighting games, where to keep things interesting or to make it more even, they will update the characters. This really good character is a bit weaker because everyone's playing them and they want more variety, right? The developers do. And this weak character, like no one's playing them, so we'll make them stronger a bit. So hopefully more players use them. I took that idea and put it in a real world setting. So now these world-renowned fighters who are the best at the game are now like weaker, and they're having to deal with that. It's a bit of an ego check. Like, what? Oh no, I actually have to try now. And then the weaker people are finally getting respect because they can win fights now.
Wow.
It has a black and white art style, which I've never tried before, but there was two reasons why I wanted to do it. One, it's faster, I was hoping, so I could be more consistent with each issue. It's black and white for that reason, but also I wanted to kind of evoke that manga vibe, because everyone's reading manga. But it still goes left to right. It's not right to left, because that would have been too jarring, I think, for a lot of my readers. I like this page because it's big panels.
Oh, yeah. That's very manga. That looks cool.
And he's done other comics with me where they weren't manga looking at all. So this was a challenge for him to try and like adopt that style. I think one of the benefits of manga style is you can just not have backgrounds for an entire page.
Yeah,
like it's just action lines. What would you think about these characters? Are they simple enough? The characters in my comic? I sent you a colored version.
Oh, yeah. They look good. They look good.
I tried really hard to make sure they weren't sharing too many of the same colors.
Right.
So, for example, the big buff lady in the background, she's got red, but it's not the main color. So that way the red guy still stands out.
They're just cool looking characters.
I tried to keep them simple enough. My artist actually, because I drew them originally, but I made the same mistake a lot of artists make. I over-designed them. So when I sent them to my artist, he would take the main idea and just streamline it, and I'm like, oh good, yes, no, that is better.
He's got to draw it over and over again.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm working with Joe Bennett on a book right now, and he designed the main character, and he made his costume so complicated. It was like, are you sure? You're gonna have to draw this over and over and over again. But
what's a special comic that you've worked on? I'm sure everyone has like a comic that they're like, man, I'm really happy I got to be a part of that. That's my favorite.
Well, I mean, just writing Batman. And getting the right Batman for the length of time I did. When I got into comics, I never pitched Batman. Everybody pitched Batman because everybody wanted to write Batman, but I never did because I thought, well, everybody's doing that, and there's only a select few are going to get chosen. And it really wasn't until Denny O'Neil, the group editor, reached out for me and asked me if I wanted to write a Robin miniseries, and that got me into the Bat offices. But I mean, every time I type the words Batman and Robin, I got a chill up my spine. It just seems so cool. I can't believe I'm doing this. I still can't believe it. I got to write so many Batman. I mean, I love the characters, but I love the medium more. And I just wanted to, when I would go to DC and pitch, it would be like some C tier character. It's like, just give me anybody. Is there a character nobody wants to write? I'll write that character.
That's good. It's good to be hungry like that. Yeah, to just be like, I'll do that. I'll cover that. That's why I'm kind of sad looking back on it that we haven't had any big video games about Robin or anything. Because I've seen the stories that you did with Robin and like with Nightwing, and I'm like, why can't we have a game about just one of them? That'd be really cool, I feel like.
It's true everywhere. Reboots, sequels, spin-offs, that's the whole entertainment industry right now.
When I saw the lineup for the newest season of Marvel movies, there were some characters I did not even know. And I'm a pretty big comic nerd. Like
Same here.
I saw Agatha and I was like, I had to think. I was like, is that the person that like trains Scarlet Witch? They're giving her an entire show. Like that is niche within niche, because Scarlet Witch is already like, she's big if you're an X-Men fan, but if you're just a regular comic fan, you're kind of like, who? Yeah,
you're talking like backup and C-level and D-level characters. I mean, same for me. I see the announcement. It's like, I don't even know who that is. I'm a big Marvel guy. I have no idea what they're talking about. And that's the problem is their success was going back to the comics of the 60s and 70s. And now they want to go to comics that were more recent. But the comics that were more recent, they didn't sell to that many people. They didn't have that kind of circulation. They didn't sell millions of copies. So most comic readers aren't familiar with them because they appeared long after, hundreds of thousands of comic fans walked away. They just weren't paying attention anymore. So I don't get it. There's so many great stories from the 60s and 70s yet to be mined. Why didn't they do that? And there's so many other characters. I mean, I don't get any of their decisions. I mean, getting rid of the core Avengers characters simply because you can't afford the actors anymore. Well, $25 million for Robert Downey Jr. seems like a bargain when your movie is losing hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be a deal to get Chris Evans back to play Captain America, no matter what it costs.
Yeah.
Because it's going to add $200 million to your box office.
Yeah, exactly. It's one thing to do D-list characters. It's another thing entirely to do spin-off or knockoff versions of the characters, which is what they were trying to do. And I'm like, why would that ever sell. That's like going to be almost impossible. You can have a new Ant-Man because he wasn't like crazy until like it finally took off. But you want to replace Iron Man, it's not going to work. You want to replace Wolverine, it's not going to work. Like you can't do that.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't understand the reasoning there. And you know, and it's like we're going to kill Robert Downey Jr. We're going to kill Tony Stark because we can't get Robert Downey Jr. anymore. It's like, you mean he's a guy in an iron suit?
Yeah.
Okay. He can show up in later movies, you know, and pay Robert Downey Jr. $5 million to come in and loop in some new dialogue.
Yeah, and it's funny too because death was never permanent in most comics anyway. The only one I can think of is Ultimate Comics was pretty respected for making death permanent for most of their characters. So when someone died in an Ultimate comic, you were like, oh.
Right. I remember when I was a kid, and it was a story in which Alfred dies, and Batman just goes to Earth 2 and gets another Alfred. and even when I was a kid, I'm like, that's horrible.
The tones of comics have changed lately too, whether because they're trying to mimic other successful genres like manga or whatever. I'll see some characters who are normally dark and edgy, their new comic run is like way more lighthearted and a bit silly, and I'm like, what's going on? Why are we doing this? Or the flip side, like a really happy character will suddenly be dark and edgy, and it's like,
yeah, I mean, you can have some emotional catharsis, but Superman is a blue sky character. He's optimistic. He's the best of all of us. He's an ideal. And you know, Superman, talk about first world problems, and what kind of real problems would Superman have? So yeah, it seems like a contrivance to me. Again, it's lazy writing. It's, you know, there's plenty of nuances to these characters to explore.
Yeah.
And my thing is always, you know, don't make the story about the character. Come up with a great story and stick the character in it. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's how I would write Punisher. I would read the newspaper about some horrible crime wave or something that had happened. And I thought, well, what if the Punisher was there?
Yeah.
And you just throw him into that. You just throw him in the middle of the Miami cocaine.
Yeah, no, Punisher's awesome for that. He can fit in so many stories and bring his own unique personality to it, because very few characters are like, no, this person has to die.
But if you make it about Frank Castle, if you make the story about the Punisher, it's a total down.
Yeah,
you've lost the you know, the action suspense aspects. It's like Walking Dead. Walking Dead just turned from a horror action series into a bunch of whiners philosophizing about what they had done in the past. It's like, who wants to watch that?
Yeah,
it's not. You lost the thread.
Yeah, and that can happen. Some people completely lose the plot. I liked James
again,
Cameron.
Lazy writing. You know, it's like you got to keep re-examining. You've always got to be looking back, re-examining. You know, what did the readers like? What did they not like? What do they want more of? Because you've got to not only meet their expectations, you've got to exceed them.
Yeah,
and just sort of put everything into a loop where the characters are just talking about themselves all the time. It's not good.
Looking back is a great thing to bring up, because even with my YouTube channel, I'll do that. If I'm ever in like a dry run, I'm running out of ideas, because I post it daily. So you're constantly finding new ideas and having to, because they expect that video tomorrow. And I'll look back and be like, I'm out of ideas. Wait, let me look back to what I did before and what got views then. Can I take that same energy or that same concept and apply it to my new stuff?
Also, what's changed about that concept? I mean, you may have done a video in the past, but everything's changed about that particular game, or everything's changed about some aspect of it, and you can revisit it. I mean, I do it in I mean, people ask me the same questions over and over again on Ask Chuck Dixon.
Yeah.
But the answers evolve because, you know, the world evolves. I mean, my answer isn't always going to be the same a year later.
I liked what James Cameron said a long time ago. It really stuck with me, because I think he does good stuff. He said, well, I try to make it to where it's about the characters themselves are all really interesting. And then I think, how can I get them to interact as much as possible? Which is why, even in like Titanic, almost every single character has a meeting or a conversation. I like that idea. I want to try and do that with my comic. I want to have issue 1 about this character, and he may always be the main character, but issue 2 is about these 2 characters or these 3 characters.
Right.
And then issue 3 is these characters. Yeah.
Yeah, any ensemble cast thing, you know, if it's a superhero group or a detective show on TV or whatever, it's always neat to see 2 characters working together that normally don't, you know, and you get to see all these new interactions.
That's a Punisher thing for sure. He was always like doing those team ups with people who like clashed completely with what he was doing. Like the Batman and Punisher run was interesting for that reason.
Right.
Where even Batman is like, I don't ever want to see you again. And Punisher's like, yeah, me neither. I think that also works with your Robin stories, your Nightwing stories, because you're talking about the characters who were normally always like the shadow of Batman, or like the B tier to Batman's A tier, and you would make stories for them, and you'd have them work with other people and stuff. So that's really cool. That's why, like, no one even talks about Tim Drake as much anymore. Everyone's back on Dick Grayson again, which is fine. But you did some cool stories with Tim Drake, and so I'm like, where's the Tim Drake like solo film? Even if it's animated, like DC's doing so many cool animated movies.
I don't know if it still works this way, but it used to work that the animation and the toy people would come to DC and go, "What's really popular?" And then the editors would lie.
That's awesome.
It's like they're oh, I want to see this animated, so I'm going to tell them it's really popular, everybody loves it. Or I want an action figure of this character. He's really popular. And we would always be shaking our heads, like, what? Nobody cares about that guy. So I think some of the decisions are not made with the best intentions for earnings or getting a large audience. Because there's a whole bunch of material that should have been animated a long time ago. There should have been a Nightfall animated.
I bet that action figure sold like crazy, like the Ninja Batman outfit
that
he shows up with.
Everything Nightfall. Nightfall was, Denny O'Neil told me just before he retired, he said that Nightfall was the last profitable project from DC that was profitable just in the comics alone. They made a lot of money off it. And then all the action figures and all the rest of it.
Funny, you just reminded me of an example where they were honest about what was selling well, because Boba Fett got so many spin-off stories in comics, because even though he does almost nothing in the movie, everyone loved his costume and were buying his toys. So it's like, this guy is really popular. We got to make stuff up about him right now. We've got to make up some stories right now. And so,
well, it's like, I mean, the most popular G.I. Joe character, Snake Eyes.
Yep.
He was created because he made the rest of the toys viable to do, because he didn't have to be painted. He just had to be molded in black.
That's
so there
funny.
was no extra expense. So he actually increased the profit margin of the whole line, and then he becomes the most popular character. And I think he becomes the most popular character for the same reason Boba Fett became so popular, is we didn't know anything about it. It was a mystery, and kids were projecting on these characters. I bet he's really cool. I bet he's this, he's that. I mean, you don't know any of this stuff.
Yeah.
But you're making it up on your own, and then they just blow up.
Oh, that's cool. Maybe I should try to make a character like that then for my comic, who just looks really cool, does maybe one notable thing, and then I'll have him disappear and see if people talk about him and make up stuff about him.
That stuff happens. I mean, when I created the spoiler, when Tom Lyle and I created the spoiler, she was only going to be in that one story. We had no idea. And then all readers just were like, when are we going to see her again? Not are we going to see her again, but when are we going to see her again? And so I was like, well, I got to think a lot more about this character, because I really wasn't thinking a long term.
Todd McFarlane and Liefeld, they love doing really complicated, like super over-designed characters, but that's also, I think, they understood that's what everyone associated with their brand. Like, even if you didn't see Spawn on the page, if you saw a crazy detailed villain or side character, you're like, I can tell that's an Image comic, because those characters are just decked out in stuff.
They got pouches everywhere.
Yep. And I'm on both sides. Like, on the one hand, I love that, but I also love when Stan Lee was with them in that one video, and he's kind of throwing little light insults at their designs. Like, you ever think about how long it takes them to get dressed? And he's just like low key barely roasting him, not in a mean way, just like poking jabs at him. Because Spider-Man just wears a skin tight suit, and then he's good. He just jumps out the window,
Stan was the best.
So I tried not to over design mine. So
no, it looked good.
They're never gonna get that popular, but if they did, their toys could be simple too.
Well, the thing is, they've got to look in that genre that you're going for, and they do. They look like fighting game characters.
It's interesting too about when making like a parody character, because on the one hand, it has to be noticeable what they're inspired by, but it can't be so on the nose that it's like, okay, you just stole someone's character. Like, you can't
with a cease and desist order start coming. Yeah, it's like when I took on Nightwing. When I took him on, he had a ponytail, and I did not want him to have a ponytail. So within the first 2 pages, it gets sliced off with a sword.
Oh wow, okay, yeah, I think I recall that.
I didn't want to make a thing out of him cutting it, It's just it gets cut off by a villain.
I do recall there was a time where all the characters had long hair. That was like a
Yeah.
thing in the late 90s and early 2000s, or even like early 90s.
You know, I remember once that when they when they canceled the initial Punisher run, they brought on a new editor, and he was asking if I wanted to submit because they were going to change the Punisher and make him kinder and gentler. And I said I'm not really interested in a kinder, gentler Frank Castle. So
Yeah, put your foot down on that one. There was a great comments section. They were talking about because now that YouTube Shorts are a thing, those like tiny quick videos, people are just to get views. They're pointing out like crazy moments that have happened in comics or like rare moments that have happened in comics. And half the fun is like, I recognize those moments, but reading the comments section is just so much fun. Like everyone's take on it. One of them was when Batman and Punisher crossed over, and Punisher was ready to just straight up kill the Joker, just like shoot him, like straight up.
Right.
And Joker was actually scared. And people pointed out in the comments, it's not that Joker's scared of dying so much as Punisher will just kill him and forget about it and go on to the next guy. Joker wants his death to matter. And if Frank Castle kills you, it really doesn't. Like, your death does not matter.
Yeah, that's a good take. That's a good take.
Did you just not do it and they made it anyway? Or did they change it because you said we're not going to do that?
They eventually, it was really weird. The editor said, you know, do you want to, he said, I'm going to have 3 different writers pitch, and I want you to be one of them. And I said, well, I'm not interested. I don't want to write Frank Castle that way. And secondly, I don't like these horse races, these competitions between writers. And plus, I write lousy pitches. I deliver on the scripts, but I write terrible pitches. I'm terrible at pitching. So I said, I'm just going to opt out. And then about 6 months later, he calls. He says, you never sent in a pitch for the new Punisher. And I said, I told you I wasn't.
Yeah.
And he said, well, Lee Weeks said he won't draw it unless you write it.
Nice.
So it was like, okay, so you were going to match me and Lee Weeks up. Well, why didn't you say that at first? And I said, no, I'm still not interested.
Dang. Yeah, it's like, what are these games you're playing where you're pretending like I have to compete for the spot, but you're going to give it to me anyway? Is that like some weird mind game you're doing?
A weasel comic editor tactic.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. I wouldn't have worked on that either, I guess. Not if I was you. If I was me, I'd jump on it because I haven't gotten to do that yet. But if I was you, I'd be like,
yeah. I mean, if I was a hungry young guy just breaking in, I would have written anything they asked me to.
You were talking about the script versus the pitch. There's a term for that with movies and probably comic stories also. I think it's called the log, where it's like, can you explain the entire plot of your story in one sentence? And it's catchy. And I've always been terrible at that. There's only one story I did where I can do that pretty easily. And it's my comic series called Ace of Spades, Robin Hood in future Las Vegas.
You know, my problem pitching in comics, particularly pitching in person, after a while, when you're telling the story, it just sounds stupid to yourself. You know, it's like, and then the Hulk hits him really hard. It's like, oh God, this sounds so dumb. You know, so I would go in with like really high concept stuff. You know, what if we did a Punisher Western? Okay.
Yeah.
You know, and the beauty of it at Marvel, for a lot of time I was at Marvel. Tom DeFalco was editor in chief, and you could just go into Tom and say, "What about this?" And he would always say the same thing. He would go down to marketing, and if they can sell it, we'll do it. And I would go down to marketing, and I would pitch it to them. And they go, "Yeah, we can sell that." And then I would go back to Tom. They said yes, and then we were off to the races.
Yeah, I do like that system. That's better. I don't know how it works now either, because I've been following a lot of the I do finger quotes because, like you said in your video, Comicsgate, when in reality it's just people who want to make their own stories and nobody will let them in to the industry is what it actually is. And I was watching them for a long time, and one of the jokes that Zach kept making was, I feel like there's no editor because these stories should not have gotten through. This is just a ridiculous plot that like nobody would want to read, and the dialogue, it's all first draft. He's like, and it says there's an editor. His name's right here, but I'm wondering if he even got to do anything or if he's even allowed to.
That's the big difference between the old school editors that I broke in with and the current editors, like post-2000 editors. There's this level of indifference where they really don't give a crap how the comic turns out. They're not invested in it. They're not involved. They're not, you know, they're more interested in getting high fives at the editorial meeting than what the actual comics look like.
Okay.
When you take a job, you want to do particularly a creative job, you want to do the job well, you want to create quality material, you want it to reach an audience so that you can keep having that job. So you can say, look, my comic sold, 150,000 copies last month. And I think the superhero movies, they have what I call sequelitis, where they, they liked it with this one villain. The next movie will have two villains. And then the movie after that, 3 villains. And it's like,
Hmm.
no, now you're just piling on.
Yeah.
You're just you have no new ideas.
Hmm.
And once again, you're not exploring the character. You're not exploring his world. For me, an older fan, it's like, oh, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange together, cool. Yeah, I want to see that
Yeah.
because I have these really fond memories of all the Doctor Strange Spider-Man meetups back in the day.
Yeah, those were really cool. Yeah. Well, Doctor Strange in comic book form is just really awesome anyway. Like his
Yeah,
stories are always really fun and cool. But I kind of wish that they had just given him an original Doctor Strange plot, like from the comics, where he's just going to different realities and seeing really
right.
weird stuff, not his own realities per se, or like have him like meet Dormammu finally, like in his actual physical form. That would have been cool.
The thing about it was with the Doctor Strange thing. I remember reading the comics when I was a kid, and Doctor Strange
Mhm.
would go into the astral plane or whatever. I was like, whoa, this place is nuts. This place is crazy. I want to see more of this. And then they do the movie, and they use effects we've seen before. It's like I saw this in Inception. There's
Yeah.
nothing new here. You're
Hmm.
not exploring Doctor Strange's world.
They're not being as creative as they could be. It's almost like a do whatever you want kind of template with Doctor Strange as far as like the worlds and stuff, and they they weren't doing that. They just did
Well,
Inception effect.
I, I can almost see the production meeting where the writers are trying to explain like the Ditko-esque Doctor Strange worlds, and the producer isn't getting it. And they said, well, why don't you just do something like Inception? Is it
Wow.
like Inception? Let's make it look like Inception.
Yep. Oh man.
And that's where you go because that's the way production meetings go. Some guy who really doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
This is what I want, and I'm the one with the money, so you got to do it.
Yeah. You reminded me of the music industry issue too. Someone was talking about like they're one of the older musicians that's also very famous, and he said, there's two types of producers, and it's kind of a shame because back when we were doing our stuff, they were kind of just like a big cigar chomper, and they'd hear your song
Frank
and go,
Zappa. You're talking about Frank Zappa,
yeah, they just say, what is this? Like, I don't know what it is. Let's put it out and see if it does well. Like, they just still gave it a
right?
chance. They didn't like try to
Right.
oversee too much because they knew that you were the artist and they were the guy with the money. So let's just see if you can give me more money. If not, I'm trying somebody else. Now the person with the money tries to call the shots a little bit and has way too much influence on the art. And so now it's all derivative and similar.
We're going to borrow this from this other movie because audiences really like that.
Mhm.
It's like how many times you see either characters walking away from an explosion looking cool. I mean, my God, or running up a tunnel with flames chasing them. It's like,
Mhm.
how many times do we have to see this before you get the idea that we're tired of it?
Mhm.
It's not new. But to producers, it's like, well, it worked before, so it'll always. All the early comic book based movies, and I forget, I lost track of how many movies ended with the hero and villain on some high precipice or building, and the villain falls off. It's
Mhm.
like, and it's like they were thinking, oh, it worked in Die Hard. Let's just keep doing that.
My buddy, he's a big fan of comics and a big fan of you too. And he was bringing up how he understands why that cliche started, where the villain would die to their own circumstance or just fall off a cliff or something. And there's two main reasons he thought of. One, the hero doesn't usually want to be the one to kill them because it's just like audiences didn't respond well to that. With rare exception,
Right.
Punisher, you want to see him kill him, but a lot of the time it's like, I don't want to see Spider-Man kill Green Goblin, so he's got to indirectly get himself killed somehow, right? But then on top of that, it's also the issue of, well, now do I have the villain redeem themselves in a future issue where they're no longer evil? Or do I do the cliche thing where they're just the exact same villain again next
Right.
month because the hero
Right.
didn't kill them, which can be fun too, but it also makes
Yeah.
the hero seem kind of stupid over time because he just lets the villain keep coming back.
Yeah, it works for a movie. It doesn't work for the comics because you create a great villain with legs. You don't want to get rid of him.
Yep.
And that's the problem with comics over the last few decades. Is once upon a time, kids read comics, and then they discovered the opposite sex or cars, and they stopped reading comics, and then a new group of kids started reading them,
Mhm.
and so the Joker was fresh to them. They didn't think, oh, how many times is Batman going to put this guy in prison? No, this is a new story to them,
Mhm.
and so there's new life breathed into these characters for a new generation of readers, and unfortunately, that doesn't happen anymore. We're your core audience for DC and Marvel is in their 40s.
Yeah, and that's probably why manga is doing so well because it's going after
Yes.
that younger group like super hard and also the
Yeah.
teenagers super hard. which is kind of a brilliant move because they have the most free time.
Yeah, it's a shame because I mean, you talked about like the '90s boom with Image and the rest of it. I mean, I remember going to conventions and the line was all kids, and that was something new. So that was a lot of the reason why the '90s boom happened, because kids were started reading comics.
So I guess maybe the answer is then just to do more of what Eric July is doing and just introduce a bunch of brand new characters, maybe.
Joe Bennett's the artist on Alpha Core, and we got along so great on that project that he said, Eric needs this kind of character, and so we created a new character which Joe's working on now. I've already written it, and Eric liked the idea, and then recently I came up with an idea and said to Joe, the Rippaverse needs this kind of character too, so we're working on that right after, and then Eric has me on a third project for him, so he's keeping me pretty busy.
Awesome.
So it's exciting stuff. It's a new superhero world. And Eric's got a lot of faith in me, and that's all I need to do good work is someone that has faith in me. And he's letting me play, building this universe, making it deeper, exploring it. And in fact, we're having our first summit next week with the Saska sisters and me and Eric to try to work out, make sure this world is consistent throughout.
That's the best thing. I think one of my favorite new characters that got introduced in ISOM 2 was Gooding. I like his concept because there's new stuff but familiar stuff. Because when they went to his mansion and he had like the robot butler and all that, I was like, okay, that's just straight up Ant-Man. But the way he makes a lot of his money is by selling his services, and I love that. It's like he's still a good guy, but he has monetized what he likes to do, which is rescuing people.
Yeah, Mike Barron's doing a graphic novel of that. I can't wait. I can't wait to see it.
I also loved how even an entire page of ISOM 2 was like just his ad, like hire my services. And I'm like, that's so awesome. If I have time, I wanted to add that in my comic where every now and then, every 10 pages or so, there'd be a fake ad for one of the characters doing a promotion. Because back in the day, newsprint comics had that. They made money by having ads every few pages.
Right.
I wanted to add that for fun. Like, here's the pro wrestler, but for one of the pages, she's like doing a Sports Illustrated cover or something, but a knockoff brand.
or a page that's just a fight card.
Yeah.
This one versus that one.
Exactly. Yeah. The upcoming fight. That's a better idea.
Sunday. Pay-per-view special.
I'll take that one for free. I'll just throw in a fight one. All right. Well, if you had any more closing statements or anything else you wanted to talk about, we're approaching the 1 hour mark, which I think is a good length.
Yeah. No. I mean, it was great to be on. Great to talk to a bunch of people that probably aren't familiar with who I am. It's always good to get out of your own neighborhood and explore.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the best parts about living. You have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, YouTube channel where you get to ask me questions. It's just Chuck Dixon or the Dixonverse. And each week I answer questions from fans and readers and other professionals sometimes. So that's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, it's awesome to get some perspective because not only do you have a unique take on things, but also you just have so much experience in the field and the genre. So it's cool to like learn, oh, that's how it was back then. Here's how things found success, like all that kind of cool stuff. Like I did not know what Moonraker was. And I was watching your video where you were talking about Moonraker. Okay, well, I'll put your socials up on screen. So if they're interested, they can go find you there. And I guess I'll throw mine. Well, you're going to handle it on your end unless you want me to do the editing and send you my full version that you can post on your channel. I could do that too if you prefer.
Send me your full version. I'll put it up on mine.
There you go. That'll work out. Well, thanks so much. Like I reached out to a bunch of comic people and you were like the first to respond, which really caught me off guard. I was like, whoa, the actual expert was the first guy to respond. And you have another podcast later today. So I know that you're busy. And I was like, this guy's going to be swamped. And you responded. So thank you so much for being the first guy to get back to me.
No problem at all. I like talking to new people. So we'll do this again sometime.